We're expecting to speak to Carlos Mesquita. He's a founder of the Rehoming Collective and is a consultant on homelessness issues because there's been a flurry of evictions in various parts of the city, namely in Sea Point and the Greenpoint tennis courts last week, this week, outside of the castle of Good Hope, and then also yesterday at Wynberg railway station. All these entities, of course, controlled and governed and owned by various different parts and points of government. The evictions in Greenpoint, of course, city related. The Castle of Good Hope is under the directorship of the Department of Public Works, and of course, Wynberg railway station by PRASA. And it's been a very, very busy week, particularly there in Wynberg. 100 people were evicted from the Wynberg railway station, according to the city of Cape Town. But Carlos Mesquita, founder of the Rehoming Group, he does join us now. Good morning, Carlos.
Good morning, Lester.
We do accept the premise that we have a housing crisis in Cape Town and South Africa, but we also have to balance that with people's right to share public space, and that has been the questions that have been raised by the city of Cape Town. All good and well, we're dealing with a housing shortage, but that does not necessarily mean those who are homeless get to use public accessible areas for their own use, Carlos. And this is what we've seen as the justification for eviction applications over the last while.
I agree with you, Lester, but unfortunately, I don't agree that the city, that is the only problem the city has, clearing up the spaces, and that they are sincere in their wish to actually solve the issue of homelessness. Because at the moment, they know that they do not have the capacity to accommodate everybody that is being affected by these evictions. The two safe spaces that the mayor spoke about when I was last on your program, actually a year ago, have not opened, so there's no extra spaces available. The Kulenberg Safe Space 1, where they're putting everybody at the moment because they actually sleep on pellets, so they don't have rooms, etc. So they're actually sleeping outside under corrugated roofs on pellets. And so the space, lack of capacity with city shelters and safe spaces or provincially funded shelters is a fact. And that is why last year I also mentioned to the mayor, as I did on your program, that I was suggesting at that stage sanctioned encampments. And that is basically, instead of in the CBD having 100, and I think there are 116 encampments that we've counted, each was either 5 people or 10 people or 3 people or 20 people, get the businesses, get everybody that's a role player involved. I don't believe in those encampments. The unserviced and unmanaged encampments are a nightmare, and they should all be banned as far as I'm concerned. But in order to ban them, you have to have something in place, and the city does not have something in place at the moment that is viable. So I've suggested that they decide on, together with the people living on the streets and the residents and the businesses and churches in every ward, give it over to the ward councillors, and then set up these encampments where they start offering services. You must also remember all of these encampments, the one in Wynberg, the one in Greenpoint, the one in Durbanville last year, these are all encampments which their own councillors, I saw yesterday, the Wynberg councillor stating that those people are there since Strandfontein. These were people that were dropped off at those points when Strandfontein closed, and for 4 years they haven't had any services. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Carlos, how many people, let's look at the Greenpoint tennis court situation. That was a city eviction. How many people were evicted from the Greenpoint tennis court area, and how many had taken up an offer for assistance, whether that offer be access to a safe space or offer for support for family reunification? How many people have actually taken up the offers that the city says is available to them?
Lester, that the last count, when we did the intervention, there were 100 people, just over 100 people in the Greenpoint tennis court area. When I say area, it's because right outside and directly opposite there were also individuals, and the court order that the city has obtained permits them to now evict people on city-owned land. So if anybody that was at the tennis courts moves over across the road and it happens to be city ground, the city can immediately evict them as well. So there were, but officially there were just over 100 people. Of those people, of those 100 people, 23 that I'm aware of accepted the either or options of the city eventually, which was a safe space. I think there were 16 there, and 7 that accepted going to Delft with a starter pack, let's call it, for build a hockey in Delft. So they're okay with people building hockeys in Delft, obviously not in Sea Point. We helped 19 individuals into what we call transitional and rapid rehousing spaces, where they're basically living in buildings in town that usually offer like backpacker services. They share a room, and then they have to share kitchen and ablution facilities. But these are all people that have a means of supporting themselves. We help them for the first month, and thereafter they're on their own as far as supporting themselves, be it recycling, car guarding, security, and most of them are quite happy to do that. So that's what I don't understand. You know, we do not have transitional spaces like this in Cape Town, and that is the reason people don't want to go to the safe spaces and to the shelters.
Well, Carlos, it wasn't just evictions from city property like the Greenpoint example. There was also public works owned land, and that is the land around the Castle of Good Hope. That's where we also saw evictions. And then PRASA is another state entity, and that was the evictions from Wynberg railway station earlier this week. Who, besides the city, who has the obligation or the duty that while during an eviction is taking place to offer some sort of alternative for people living there? And if there is no offer for alternative, does that simply not just displace homeless people to another area further along down the line, which doesn't really solve the problem? It solves the problem in the CBD with around the castle. It solves the problem around Wynberg railway station, but that just moves it literally further up the line.
Correct. And this is the thing with the Wynberg, it's actually quite strange, because if you read how the city has reacted to the Wynberg eviction, it's actually, then you have to laugh, because the city is now complaining that the PRASA eviction was not done legitimately, which we all know the city does that type of eviction as well. So it was unlawful. The one at the PRASA was unlawful, because what happened there was that PRASA went in and evicted without having a court order, without having offered alternative accommodation. Understand that the Fire Act is not only for people living on the street, it's for people living anywhere, basically. If they don't have other accommodation, then they cannot be evicted. The court won't evict them. So what happened there is PRASA did not, and the city and PRASA were working together to actually try and get an eviction there. The reason the city is reacting the way they are now is precisely the same reason that I react the way that I do when they evict people. And that is that the people just in the area above the Wynberg station are now complaining that the people evicted from the station have now gone onto PRASA property directly opposite their homes. And so now, of course, they're complaining to the city about this, and the city is now upset with PRASA for not having followed the procedure of having offered alternative accommodation, because now the residents who vote for the DEA are obviously complaining about it.
Carlos Mesquita is the founder of the Rehoming Collective. Really appreciate your time.